American History. Everything you need to ace American History in one big bad notebook. Chapter 5. Jamestown, Virginia do over. If at first you don't succeed, although the Roanoke colony failed, the English were determined. A group of merchants formed the Virginia Company of London to make money from the colonies. On April 26, 1607, approximately 125 settlers reached the Chesapeake Bay and founded the first permanent English settlement in North America, Jamestown, on the banks of James River. North Carolina, Virginia, Roanoke, Atlantic Ocean, Jamestown, James River. What is the world of James? After Queen Elizabeth I died in 1603, James I became King of England. The settlers named Jamestown and the James River in his honor. The Jamestown settlers. Although Jamestown eventually survived, most of its first settlers were, let's say, misguided. They settled on an island near the river because it could be a defensive position against the Spanish, Native Americans, and others should they approach by water. But the water was dirty and undrinkable for most of the year. It was bitterly cold in winter, humid in summer, and full of disease-carrying mosquitoes because of the marshy conditions. Most of the settlers were rich adventurers and explorers, not craftsmen or laborers, so they focused on searching for gold, for which there was little, instead of building houses or planting food. It's no surprise that poorer than half of the settlers survived past their first winter. John Smith. Jamestown was in trouble, so in 1608, Captain John Smith took charge. Smith forced people to plant and build, work or starve. And Jamestown prospered. Smith developed relations with Chief Powhatan, leader of the powerful local Native American group called the Powhatan Confederacy, who taught the English settlers how to grow maize and have something to eat. But the Confederacy, an alliance between sovereign states. The starving time. In 1609, about 400 more settlers arrived, including women and children. When John Smith returned to England because of an injury, disease and famine began to take over. Only about 60 people survived the winter of 1609 to 1610, the starving time. People were so hungry that ate anything in which, maybe even each other. Relations with Native Americans fell apart. Concerned about the fate of Jamestown in 1610, the Virginia Company of London sent them a new governor, Lord Delaware. Delaware was named for him later to set things right again. Jamestown was the first permanent English settlement in North America. The Spanish town of St. Augustine, Florida, remember explorer Ponce de Leon, was the first permanent Spanish settlement in North America. John Rolfe, one of the successful settlers at Jamestown, was the first colonist to cultivate tobacco for export. A cash crop initially grown mainly in the West Indies, tobacco was hugely profitable for the Virginia Company, and therefore made the settlement profitable for the first time. In 1614, John Rolfe married Pocahontas, the daughter of Chief Powhatan, improving the relationship between the English and the Native Americans, but only temporarily. Get your John straight. Don't listen to the legend. John Rolfe married Pocahontas, although briefly captured by her tribe. John Smith may or may not have been rescued by Pocahontas. Most historians believe John Smith exaggerated or completely made up the story about the princess. Tobacco expands. Tobacco became a popular cash crop. People in England knew how valuable it was and demanded that the Virginia Company give them a cut of the profit. Instead, the company gave them land. Under the head right system, your right per head. Any man who paid his way across the ocean was granted 50 acres of land in Virginia and 50 more acres for which person had he brought with him, including women and servants. It was a major incentive to grow tobacco. The English needed more labor for their tobacco plantation. A primary source was indentured servitude. Indentured servitude, the condition of being a contracted laborer. Indentured servants, often from Britain or Germany, signed a contract for 4 to 7 years of service in exchange for passing across the Atlantic. After the time was up, they were free to make a new life. Indentured servitude was outpaced by the growth of the slave trade, which was legalized in Virginia in the 1660s. With more and more tobacco being grown, lifelong slaves began to replace temporary servants. The House of Burgesses. In 1619, the House of Burgesses, a legislative body, held its first annual assembly. Burgesses, a citizen representative of a local government. Legislative, having the function of making laws and, in reference to the House of the Burgesses, imposing taxes. Under the overall governance of the Virginia Company, the people had their own representative government. Representative government, government with elected representative of the citizens, a royal mass. In 1622, the Powhatan people became increasingly concerned about the tobacco palms taking up all the land along the James River. When an Englishman murdered a member of the tribe, the Powhatan launched a military campaign. On March 22nd, they attacked and killed a quarter of the English population. Vicious fighting continued for 20 years. Since the Virginia Company could neither protect the settlers nor make enough money to justify all the fighting, in 1624 King James revoked their charter. Jamestown became a royal colony, meaning the king was in charge. He chose a governor to rule the colony in his place and abolished the House of Burgesses. After King James I's death, however, King Charles I reinstated the House of Burgesses in 1629. Jamestown had become the first permanent English settlement in North America, the first English royal colony in North America, and the birthplace of representative government in the United States to be. But Jamestown had its share of conflict too. In 1676, a group of frontiersmen led by Nathaniel Bacon led attacks on the Pamunkey people and the governor of Jamestown, although Bacon's rebellion quickly ended after Bacon's ultimately death from dysentery. It was one of the first acts of rebellion by colonists over land, high taxes, and failure to deal with the colonists' demands.